Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. Rumi, 13th century. If you've ever come across any Hunter x Hunter discussion on the shonen's main protagonist, Gon Freecs, you no doubt have heard the plethora of labels that have been stuck on the character. Selfish, hypocritical, and morally inconsistent is often how he is described, and the main criticism of his character is his indifference to other characters in the show dying, including his new best friend Killua having come from a past of killing people for a living, but then criticizing others, for example, the Phantom Troop, for doing the same, and showing clear disgust towards their actions. His actions are inconsistent and random, and he seems to be egocentric in terms of judging others based on their usefulness to him. And spoiler alert, if you haven't watched to the end of the show, his fall into darkness arc, following the murder of Kite where he even threatened to kill Komugi, falling into the same hole he had criticized the Phantom Troop of. All of this has resulted in people going as far as calling him a monster. I'm going to get right into my perspective on the character in regards to the proposed accusations and explaining exactly why Gon is absolutely not a monster. Togashi is a trailblazer and Hunter x Hunter is a unique storytelling masterpiece. Therefore, if you try to use what you know to measure it, you'll often fall short and miss the target. Gon is a unique character in that he's on outward appearance a good-natured, extroverted kid who's brimming with joy and curiosity. He's extremely sure of what it is that he wants and always pursues it with incredible drive and motivation. But there's one trait in his possession that has driven a stake in people's opinions of Gon in the series, and that is his tendency to allow himself to be inconsistent in the face of new challenges, faces and obstacles, and his ability to approach these scenarios with no preconceived notions based on what he was told or how he has acted in the past. Gon is a pure representation of the uncontaminated human spirit. Should do, think or feel are not vocabulary that exist in the consciousness of this amazing character. Instead, he listens to what he does think, feel or want to do. While most people despise him for this, labeling him as selfish and hypocritical, in my opinion, this is the exact trait that makes him incredibly admirable. And you may call me crazy, but I've got my own set of reasons for why I think this way. So first, let's hone in on the point that he does not even consider what he should do or what the right thing to do is. In my opinion, that is an incredibly wise trait to have at such a young age. If we look at real life, most people allow the opinions they have heard from others to be the obstacle that stops them from moving forward in a desired direction. And if we think rationally, this is a smart decision. Say you want to make a particular decision, but you receive intel that this decision is not the right one. And we can assume that not the right one would mean you would experience some sort of suffering as a result, as it will not allow you to move in the direction intended. And say you avoid making that decision, although you really want to, and then let's say that theoretically we can see into the future and find out because you listened, you averted the crisis. That's fantastic, and in this instance, this way of thinking proved beneficial. But there's one flaw with this method of living. You never know whether the information you are receiving is actually the truth. And since there is constant aversion underlying this mindset, you never actually find out. It's a life of confusion and what ifs. What if your instinct was correct and following it would allow you to achieve what you set out to achieve? You are never really certain of the truth. So the only thing one actually possesses is their own truth and experiences. Gon doesn't follow a narrative of right or wrong, because fundamentally, right and wrong are abstract concepts that are difficult to bring down to earth. What is right, and right for who? Because Gon ignores external input, he is in every situation a direct recipient of the truth, a purist. And this leads to real learning. Because he gets to put his theories and feelings to the test to see if they work in reality, he freely experiments, marching to his own desires, and as a result, truly learns the consequences of his actions. Now, these are pieces of real experience that he can lean on to guide how to proceed further. Hunter x Hunter is Gon's first real exposure to the adult world, so his inconsistencies are completely understandable, and in my opinion, just point to how brilliant of a piece of fiction the series actually is. I think this also explains his lack of resentment for his father, Jing, who left him when he was just born to pursue his own dreams. Jing embodies the same philosophy of living, and Gon admires him for it. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with this relationship. In real life, people often hate others who they are told to hate, with no understanding of why. You should despise so-and-so, and you should like and listen to so-and-so. Gon, again, does not subscribe to this BS, and relies on his own feelings which tell him that his father is admirable. We can also extrapolate this mindset in the form of Jing's achievements. In the series, he is an elite hunter who was a key figure in the preservation and restoration of many archaeological ruins in the Hunter x Hunter world, using his own fortune to make sure that the world can enjoy these monuments of history. So Gon's admiration for his father is not necessarily misplaced or far off. Had Jing subscribed to the same should'ves of what it means to be a father, he could have never achieved what he did. No man ever steps in the same river twice, for it's not the same river, and he's not the same man. In terms of Gon's character, I also think what's being overlooked a lot here is the context switching throughout the story. Over an extended period of time, situations change and are unique. Also, we never walk into the same situation as the same person. Add emotions on top of that, which are as fickle as anything can be, and we have a very inconsistent sequence of events. Especially for a child who doesn't have the facilities or life experience to integrate stoicism into their life, where emotions can be distinguished from actions. And this is a natural way of life. Most human beings operate like this. Life is not a set box of events. Situations have unlimited differential factors, meaning right or wrong is never obvious. By trapping yourself in a box of rules you have set with your limited knowledge, you are blocking yourself off from a lot of learning opportunities. Therefore, I personally would rather possess the traits that Gon has than being what the average person would constitute as a good person, because his potential for evolution is limitless. He has discarded every break in his mind and therefore is able to manifest as the best version of himself possible. If you don't drop the brakes, you can never truly discover yourself or the truth. Reward and risk are related. You can't gain wisdom without being willing to being exposed to the risk of falling flat on your face and potentially being consumed by darkness. Life teaches us this constantly, but we are too blind to see. We are all familiar with the concept of exams that are stringent. You either do well or you don't. The grade you get back is not sugar-coated or changed out of mercy. And the same path is the journey of the truth seeker, the hero's journey. By leaving your old life behind, you risk falling into chaos and not making it. But if you don't, then your morality is true. Then you are the truth. By exposing yourself to the unknown, you are by definition not sure if you are strong enough to make it through. But if you do, your potential for evolution is limitless, which relates to, as Netero said in the series, humanity's potential for evolution is limitless. Zapow mentions that because Gon opens his mind to everything, right or wrong, is what makes him dangerous. He can never be appraised. He can never be manipulated because he is unpredictable. His limit is never known because he hasn't set a limit for himself. He has an open mind for continuous and exponential growth that catapults him to achieving what he set out to achieve. He is a representation of the unmanipulated and unrestricted human potential that hasn't been set limits and boundaries on what can or cannot be achieved. Now I understand why this kid interests me. He doesn't care about right or wrong. When I admitted to making forgeries and when that trader gave me a hard time, he didn't react with accusatory glares or by plotting his own evil deeds. His reaction was very simple, innocent curiosity. He opens his mind to everything that impresses him, right or wrong, which means that he's dangerous, someone who can never truly be appraised. By extension, Gon also represents the courage to fail, the courage to be potentially perceived as a bad person, and the knowledge that this doesn't actually matter. Most people understand their inadequacies in the face of adversity, and therefore as a result run from it, as adversity reveals your true nature and brings to the surface every shortcoming of your character. But the truth is that if you face adversity and you do come short, it doesn't mean that you are a bad person. Instead, it points to a lack of knowledge, and the newly acquired learning experience can go towards the development of your character. However, if you are never tested, you can never know who you are, and therefore can never become more. Gon, a young 12-year-old, is facing the world head on, and in my opinion, for that, his courage should be commended. Either that, or you can subscribe to a set of rules, which is comfortable. It's a safety net where everybody wins. You get to label yourself as a morally sound person without proving it in reality. Holding beliefs of goodness does not classify you as a good person, and I truly believe that this is one of the biggest problems with today's society. People identify with abstract beliefs that they have constructed and decided will form their identity, and any other point of view is discarded and rejected. And why is this the case? It's probably because their identity is not built on truth. It's not built on action or a track record of proving themselves. It's built on falsehood and therefore is by nature insecure, which is what results in the aggressive attitude that is usually evoked when challenged. This is why I believe the criticism of Gon to be nonsense, and simply the result of abstract ideals projected onto real life scenarios. I think that Gon's genuine approach to life, where he acts in accordance with his own compass, if integrated into society, would prove much more productive as a whole than empty words. Sure, it wouldn't eradicate evil, but who said evil needs to be or can be eradicated? Rome wasn't built in a day, but was also not built on words. It was built on action. I think what is also overlooked is the courage of Gon to blaze his own path. And I'm not calling out anyone who thinks otherwise, and neither am I saying that they are wrong. In fact, they are 100% correct. By comparison to the typical shonen protagonist with impractical and overinflated ideals that they proclaim to everyone they meet on their journey, Gon is a selfish hypocrite. But if you take both examples and compare them to the real world, which character would truly prosper and rise up using their mentality? I believe Gon has a much greater likelihood, and this is not for no reason. As I've mentioned in my other videos on the series, Togashi has intentionally tried to keep the series as pure and reflective of life as possible, and this is the reason for his amazingly interesting three-dimensional characters. The character depth and the reason we are able to have these discussions is because the characters are closer to real life in terms of their inner workings as well as the Hunter x Hunter world. Art imitates life, and this is why I believe Togashi is a master of his craft. Any writer can create a protagonist protagonist with the default ideals, because that same writer also controls the consequences and rules within that world. The main character can have these ideals and still prosper and rise to the top, because they are shielded with a coat of plot armor that the writer has equipped them with. Togashi saw this blueprint and decided no thanks. He threw the rules out of the window and decided to let go of the control of the world that he had created. In a creative sense, Togashi created a living, breathing world by trying to stay as true to reality as possible, and from there, metaphorically speaking, the story wrote itself. Togashi was simply responding to each situation based on his feelings, on what he would do as a fallible human being, and this is clearly reflected in the character of Gon. Therefore, I think Gon represents the inner child everyone carries within them. He represents unfiltered curiosity and the courage to go after what you want, the light that most people have suppressed in themselves. Maybe this is where the heavy criticism and resentment of Gon stems from. He represents what most people want to be like, but are too afraid to be like, and some of the other things we mentioned earlier. But of course, the purer the light, the darker the darkness when it strikes. And this explains why Gon tends to deviate towards the extremes, either loving something holy or someone, or hating something or someone holy. And of course, we are all too familiar with it in Gon's case, from the Chimera Ant arc. Gon is a pure, unfiltered representation of the indomitable human spirit, flaws and all included in the package. Hunter x Hunter is a journey through the beginnings of Gon's adventure and encapsulates a realistic portrayal of a real life journey, and of course is messy as a result. Real learning comes from making mistakes, and I think this is something that Hunter x Hunter doesn't shy away from. So no, Gon is not a monster. He is human, and in fact, as human as we've probably seen in storytelling. And the fact that Togashi's attempt at encapsulating a character, experiencing a world that is as real as possible, resulted in him being labelled as a monster, possibly points to the fine margin that actually exists between human and monster. There is only one good, knowledge, and one evil, ignorance, Socrates. Run from what's comfortable, forget safety, live where you fear to live, destroy your reputation, be notorious. I have tried prudent planning long enough. From now on, I'll be mad. Rumi.